Good morning. How are you all today? I'm good. It's been a wild May. I haven't made a video in a few weeks because I have been busy, for one thing. Another thing, I've been highly distracted by the world and some energies coming in and out of my daily life, and I'll talk about that to see if maybe you feel the same way. I've been experiencing these elusive timeline jumps. And again, I'll come back to that and explain it in more detail, what my interpretation of that means. And also just basically a little May update with what's going on with life around Minnesota, with the dragon energies, with May energies as they come through with the blooming of all the fauna, the flora and the fauna. I am a gardener, so I've been very busy with all of the flowers that have been delivered and the shrubs and perennials, and we've been just working really hard out at the course. And I'm also an author, so I have written and published 4 books in the Whitebird series. They are available in the link that I have put in my description for my channel. And I am also a dragon. I am an aquamarine crystal dragon. My name is Crystal, and um, she's been a little quiet lately, meaning I have felt a little bit disconnected with her on a daily basis. And I believe there is probably a reason for that, and I will mention that as well. So today is May 18th, and yesterday I do believe we, as a planet, we became in alignment with Pluto or Uranus. And what that means is the energies are ripe for transformation. Our world is changing rapidly, and many people, every day, more people, are awakening to the realization that life is not just about waking up, going to work, paying your bills, um, worrying um, about how you're going to feed yourself next. Those are all real concerns. Don't get me wrong when I bring those up, by if it might sound like I am trivializing them, because they are very, very important. However, it's going to get easier um, for everybody, not just for a handful of those chosen ones that you might have heard about if you're like me and you like to go through different YouTube channels, or I go, like I say, I go on X just to get a little bit of information about what's happening in our world, because I do not watch the news, the mainstream media. I haven't watched that for years because I have never felt like it was really authentic and gave me a news story worthy of my time that was positive. The media, their job, as I've said before, without blaming the newscasters, the reporters, the interviewers, although they should know better, um, they are being given a script, probably a large paycheck, to transfer information to the masses that will capture the highest ratings, because people are drawn to drama. They just are. I am. And I had to rewire my brain, let's say, so that I'm not so drawn to those clickbait headlines on YouTube, for one thing. Um, Worst thing that could happen has happened. And then you watch the video. I admit I have, because it was something I thought would be important. And not any place in that video did they discuss something terrible had happened. So the news tends to, and I do stay away from those channelers now, because I do like to listen to um, those few um, alternative media sources that, for one, don't have sponsors. They're not paid to promote an item, so they're not in anyone's pocket. So we know that I feel um, like they deserve my time, and I will listen to what they have to say on many different topics. I'm kind of jumping around here, but um, at the end of the day, my biggest pieces of information come from when I'm quiet and I'm just listening to my soul and I'm listening to my dragon voice. And it seems that lately it has been a little harder to really just quiet my mind and have a moment of serenity. I don't really know why, but I think it is because of all of the incoming light codes from our sun. We're having enormous solar flares and geomagnetic storms. And when we're moving through these times of heightened ascension symptoms, our mind is let's say, a 3D um, concept, or our brains, our physical bodies are mainly three-dimensional. It's a mass, okay? And our soul, we all have souls, otherwise we would not be able to connect with our divine spark, and most likely not drawn to a video such as this or any other video where they do talk about timeline jumps, dragons, heightened ascension symptoms. It just has a little harder time tracking when the energies are increasing, and at the same time the energies are increasing, you feel like you're in a different state, maybe an alpha state, where all of a sudden you just find yourself quite unfocused, and at the same time distracted. And so it's not always easy for me to navigate through that, because these are unprecedented times. The Mayan calendar, for those of you who are aware of that, excuse me, all of a sudden I remembered I made coffee and I want to drink it while it's hot. The Mayan calendar ended in 2012, and many people believe that was the end of days. And it was an end of an era. It was an end of a time, because they didn't know how to forecast anything after 2012, because of all of the upgrades and the changes that were coming into our planet. The energies, cosmic energies, solar flares, um, happenings in our inner earth, on planet's inner earth, where there are worlds that are grand worlds which have their own sun. Now you can do your own research on that. But when we're in these times in the 2000, after post 2012, there really are so many different train tracks heading in different directions. that not one person really, or group, can really say this is where humanity is going. We're getting tastes and glimpses and ideas from ancient masters that are channeling through souls, particular souls on this planet, to help us understand. I particularly avoid any channelers who channel entities that have never experienced life on Earth. I just have more of an affinity with those messages that come from ancient, masters, ascended masters, who have been here, who have walked in this earthly plane, on this earthly plane, who have an affinity with having a human body and the struggles that come with that. And so here we are in 2025, 13 years after the Mayan calendar ended. And our world seems to be crumbling. As I've said, and I'm repeating this because I always find it helpful when I listen to someone talking and they bring up situations that I'm concerned about or struggling with, or maybe just having a hard time understanding the challenges that come with change, or banking systems are, if they're not failing, they are going to fail. And that is not a bad thing, because we have been imprisoned, let's say. We have been controlled by the financial system. I started the video by saying many people are realizing life is not all about going to work and figuring out how our bills are being paid. As humans, we are divine. We are the grandest beings in all the cosmos because of all of the different star races that are here in human form that have volunteered. Dolores Cannon, for those of you who are familiar with her work, she speaks about the 3 waves of volunteers. And there were different generational volunteers that came in, that were born. I think she talks about those end of the 40s, 50s, 60s, the 90s, 2000s, and then 2014 and on. And these waves and even pre-1940, some refer to there are those souls who are connected, who were referred to as scouts, because they came in and their energies helped scout out where the first wave of volunteers would all go. These volunteers, I know that I am one of the first, in the first wave of volunteers. I was born in 1958. And I remember very clearly and vividly when I was very young and feeling, why am I here? This is not somewhere where I choose to be. I am lonely. I am not understood. And I built a resentment very quickly for protection, for self-care. And I've since healed many of these childhood wounds because that I inflicted upon myself. However, as a Grand Master, I've also I chose this life. I chose my family. I chose my friends. I chose every situation that I encountered. And I chose that to understand it and to grow from it. And there are no accidents. There are no mistakes. So I am one of the 3 waves of volunteers. And the human beings have a history, a galactic history that is vast. And many human beings, not every one of them, but many human beings, are grand masters of their own tribe in different star systems. They're very, very wise. If they didn't choose to incarnate in this timeline on Earth at this time, they were um, volunteered by, let's say, their family, their star family, as the wisest being that would be able to handle challenges brought forth living on planet Earth in this timeline. So the human being, there is no greater being in the cosmos than the human being, because we have this history, galactic history, and all these different lifetimes, and all this wisdom and these skills, and our DNA is royal that we can access. But we have to really awaken, and many are. Some have that spark, and they just keep, like myself. I had a spark. I think I always did from day one, although there were years where I was quite asleep. But that's okay. No judgment there. It's just, recording and remembering. And some are thrown into very challenging situations where they have maybe a near-death experience, or something startles them so greatly that they just wake up to the reality of what is, sometimes gradually and sometimes quite quickly. But here we are, and it is not very easy to navigate through. It can be challenging. However, it's going to become easier and easier as the days progress. There is going to be a lightening, and we are, as human beings, when millions of years ago, Gaia, the soul of this planet, some call her Sophia, there are different various names attached to the consciousness of our planet. And we were never meant to be mere humans doing daily tasks and chores, exchanging money for services, and having debt and paying taxes, and sitting in a schoolhouse being controlled by a teacher and a bell, and learning about history that is 9 times out of 10 not the real history of our planet. This is not really what being a human being is all about. We experienced all of that together without judgment, that, we went on a downward trajectory because we needed to experience the descension so that we can re-experience the ascension, which we are ascending now. We descended from 12 dimensional beings, 6 all the way to 12 dimensional beings. We descended down into the third dimension, mainly after the fall of Atlantis. Yes, there were malevolent forces that were involved in all of that, but it's without getting into the darkness and regret. It's just part of how resilient human beings are, and how we can teach the rest of the cosmos this grand opportunity and experience of being human. Yes, there are tragedies on this planet. There's war, starvation, brutality beyond measure that no one could even conceive if they've never experienced it. But there's also on the other side love and beauty and companionship and relationships and growth from pain and joy experienced by just watching. I have a little robin outside my front door, and she's got her little nest, and she's in my honeysuckle shrub. And she's so cute. And she's just darling, and she sits in her head is always cocked. She sits in her nest, and I try not to bother her. I have to do, my chores outside, but I'm very aware of her little world in her nest. And I say that because of the joy it brings me knowing that she's chosen this honeysuckle shrub as her sanctuary. That's her world. The world isn't very big. And she sings quite loudly and in the mornings. And we had some kind of rough weather a few days ago. The wind. Oh my gosh. If any of you live in Minnesota, in the last few days, the wind was extraordinarily strong. It wasn't a storm. There were parts of Minnesota that experienced storms, but the wind that came through was unnerving, very unnerving, because it was just strong. It didn't kind of come in gusts. It was just, the trees were just going crazy. And my yard is so full of maple seeds, those little helicopter seeds, that I can barely see the grass. That's okay. I'll deal with it. But the little birdie, she's just hanging on her little nest. She built it so strongly and so well. And, she knows how the animals in our world are part of this world. They are genetically wired to be on this planet. They have fur, they have feathers, they have hair all over their body. They have the instinct. They know how to migrate. They do not need to have money. I tell this to my students sometimes. And they think it's very funny, but it's so true that animals don't need to go to the grocery store. They don't need to go to the bank. They have a community. They know how to live together without having to work. And that is basically how humanity, where we're going. We are not, this life is not intended to be a struggle and to have a paycheck that barely gets you food on your table. That is not the intention of this human experience. Yes, we fell into that trap because of controlling forces that have been handled, that are on their way out. So now we are so fortunate to be alive at this time in 2025 on planet Earth, that we get to experience this awakening into what being a human being is truly all about, having that divine spark and having skill sets, being able to fly. Right? I don't know about you, but I've always had flying dreams, and I know exactly what it feels like to be able to fly. To be able to work together in a community and have all the abundance anyone could truly ever desire, where no money needs to be exchanged, or you have all of the financial freedom you could desire, so that anything that you desire to have will be yours to have. And it is all given in a compassionate, communal way, where it's unthinkable to take another life. It's unthinkable to even destroy an animal's life. Yes, there are those community of animals that have sacrificed their selves, like the cattle and the pork, the fowl, the fish. They've sacrificed, they basically offered their lives as that consciousness, the cattle consciousness. And that is changing, because human beings will awaken so much to the fact that the thought of, and I haven't gotten there yet because I consume meat. But we are moving towards the time where maybe back to the way it was hundreds and hundreds of years ago, hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago, most likely, where if there was any need for a protein or animal source, it was done in a very compassionate, honoring way when they took an animal's life. That's turned and gone the complete other direction with the factory farms. But it's not going to stay that way forever. It will not stay that way forever. The energies won't support that. This planet won't support that kind of the factory farming. And it's moving its way out, and you'll be noticing that with either news stories or how our industries are changing. They're becoming a lot more compassionate. And so the timeline jumps when I referred to at the beginning, how maybe time just feels different. And that is because of the expanding, and, it's almost like air is, if you think of how you put air into a balloon and it gets bigger, and then when you let the air out, it gets smaller. Um, Sometimes that's just how I feel with time. It's either all expansive and it's just all the time in the world, or else there's no time at all and you feel like where did the time go? And so there really isn't any way to record time. I want to get scientific about it. I know Einstein came up with a theory, and there are terms, scientific terms, but that's changing with the changing energies of this planet and the frequencies and these sacred sites all over the planet. You can do your research on that. Different sacred sites, especially in Egypt, because Egypt is a power center. It sits right on these grids and these ley lines. That's it's no surprise why the pyramids are built there. In fact, every monolithic structure, megalithic structure, is built on a conjunction of ley lines because of the the vortexes there, the power vortexes, sacred geometry. It's where the ancients practiced their communal with the earth and the stars. So the ancients knew all about how to communicate with the stars and the planet itself. And many star beings visited this planet, thousands and millions of years ago. We in modern times, let's say in the last 100 years, a lot of historians and record keepers have hidden the truths from humanity just to keep us thinking that we are very small. But that's changing because of the planet itself is ascending, has ascended, let's say. We've all ascended already. We've already made it. We have succeeded. We have gone to the golden age. Because time is not linear. Time is a loop. Because the past, present, and the future all exist at the same time in different dimensions and different levels. So we have experienced the potentials, the grand potentials of ascension, where we are now able to, some say we are already in the fifth dimension. We're already living the perfect lives, perfect life. So you are a creator, you are a manifester. You can create and manifest your perfect life, not by saying affirmations over and over. I don't personally believe in affirmations. What I do believe in personally is just the expectation that my life is perfect. Put in these little seeds, plant these seeds of how I want my day to go. How can I best serve the light today? I am always offering myself in service to spirit. I know exactly who I am. I know exactly what I wish to have in my life. I am a compassionate human being. I'm in the sunshine and I'm not in the sunshine. But if I'm in too much sun, Here comes the sun. Hello, good morning, sun. I love you. It's a little high in the sky because we've had these clouds come in and out, and can't now. The sun is further to the north because we are in the northern hemisphere, and the sun goes further into the northern sky and stays in the sky longer in the summer months. So I don't really get to see it peek over the horizon because it's behind my house, say. So if you're feeling a little disoriented, do some grounding. Go outside, go in nature, hug a tree, stand in the grass without your shoes on, talk to the birds, and just know that everything is working out perfectly. We live in a perfect universe where everything, the universe is benevolent. God is benevolent. Our souls are experiencing lives are through us. And so if a challenge occurs or something really gets you, I was really angry the other day. I was just angry because it was so hot. We went through days of heat in Minnesota and everything was really dry and hot. And I just got crabby. And I just looked at somebody and they asked me a question and I said, "What?" And then we both just laughed because it was so silly that because I never get crabby. But I just was in it. I felt it. I felt the anger. I didn't exhibit, I didn't I did throw a flower down that had dried out in its little package. It's flat. I'm a thrower. Felt really good, but the flower was done. It was toast, and so I just kind of threw it into the dirt. And then it passed. It passed, and I don't deny me my feelings. If I want to feel angry, I feel angry, but I don't get angry at people because that's not fair. If I want to be sad, if I feel grief, I felt grief the other day. It was just the grief of a life that I know will never be again. When I sometimes think of these summertime days at the beach, days with my friend Lori on the back of our ponies. Even when I was first married, and my children were little, I grieve for those days, and I let myself feel that. But I don't stay there. I don't have any regrets. I don't stay there. But I allow myself those emotions. I allow myself the emotions of joy. When I see my grandsons and my daughters, they were beautiful with me on Mother's Day. And I was with my mother and my dear friend. So, with that, I just wanted to visit for a while. I hope you're all healthy and happy. And if you so choose, please like this video and subscribe as I'm trying to grow my channel. And if you have a dragon energy, and I do, and I love my dragon dearly, I say goodnight to her every evening. I don't have a dragon, which sometimes I say because I forget I am a dragon. I have the soul of a dragon. It's very, very, very large. And sometimes I forget that. But just because it's a large, grand energy doesn't mean it's better or it's bigger or faster. We can be grand beings and our ego can stay in check. Our energy is growing. We are remembering who we are as grand beings. And our ego doesn't have to protect us as much anymore. And that's what the ego really is for, is protection. And to make sure that we survive. So now our intuition and our passion and our compassion can grow and help move us through life. And our ego can quiet down and help us in this 3D world with the 3D situations. But it doesn't have to drive the ship. So please like this video, subscribe, share with your friends, and please leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. So with that, I will say have a wonderful day. Play well together. This is a grand opportunity just to be yourself, to be your authentic self. I have experienced some of that lately, and boy, does it feel good to feel your own power. Just to be who you are without pretending. It startles people. It takes people off guard. It confuses them when you're just authentic and you say yes or no without any explanation behind it. In compassion. And so you play well together and acknowledge those you pass on the street. Okay, there are some of those that are less fortunate. I don't even know if that's the right word to say. I'll retract that. They're just having a different experience. But everyone needs our love and our acknowledgement and our compassion. And so with that, I'll say good day. Quick bell ringing for the children. We always ring the bell for the children. There are still those children who are suffering in dark places, and the bells will help bring them loving, calm energy to let them know that they soon will be okay. So have a beautiful Sunday. Namaste.